Hello, English language learners. We are here to practice speaking English. If you're a learner of English, you want to practice speaking, come on through. Let me know in the comments if you want to speak, and we can have a chat. In the meantime, I'm going to speak with myself basically. But now I'm looking at. I found this website called Positive News because I guess if you look on a lot of the news sites, you have the I guess the um, well, a lot of the news, obviously, that's happening in the world, but sometimes it's not as uplifting and stuff. So I came on here to see if there's anything that could be positive. And I'm trying to see. I was actually curious about. I saw this briefly. I'm not sure if this actually goes to a story. I guess I should have checked this out. So we've got it. So the story is wanted young people to conserve Britain's oceans and get paid. And the picture seems to be some young people dressed up for what seems to be cold weather with some type of canoe in some sort of an area with water, obviously, lakes maybe. I know they've got that lakes area or lakes district or something like that in the UK. I think that's in England, in fact. But well, I'm not sure if this is that. That's just a guess. Um, and that's what we want to do. If we don't know, as long as we're not sort of like offending anyone, we want to just try and practice and see what vocabulary we can use. And if there's some specific words that we want to use that we don't know, we can look for that and so on, and then try to use it in the actual things that you're saying. So if you're presenting an argument or you're just telling a story, whatever it may be. But what we're going to do, we're going to look through this story and just have a chat about it. If we read all of the story, I don't know, probably not. But we'll have a look at part of the story, and then we'll just discuss it amongst ourselves, shall we? Let's have a look. Uh, so, a social enterprise has launched in Britain to provide marine conservation jobs in deprived coastal communities. Now, of course, when you're looking at stuff like this, you can just have the idea of looking at the story overall, just getting the idea of the story to talk about it or just to understand. You could be looking at the vocabulary specifically. You could be looking at the grammar, thinking why have they chosen that particular um, grammar structure. Sometimes you have choices depending on the way you're presenting the information, and so on. If you see vocabulary, maybe you want to think, what other words could I use? What are some synonyms or antonyms of those words? What are different ways that I could express that? Is there a more formal or less formal way that I could talk about that particular idea, etc.? Okay, so those are just some ideas that I suggest. It depends on, of course, what you want to do in the particular activity that you're doing. Britain's beloved but neglected seaside towns are a strange paradox. Inundated in summer, they seem mostly forgotten the rest of the time. So I guess winter, spring, and autumn. I wonder why that is. Research the rest of the time. So research shows that they have higher levels of poverty and unemployment than non-coastal towns. Okay, interesting. So maybe that's they're very high on tourism and that sort of stuff. So when they're inundated in the summer, people go there for the. Well, I'm not sure if you necessarily go. Maybe some places where you go surfing or go to the beach or other sort of summery activities. Um, and so everyone goes there. It's a big sort of tourist areas, and then they don't go there in other times. And I wonder why they don't go there other because I don't think if you're talking about Britain doesn't get that cold, does it? I suppose like the more north you go, it gets colder. And I guess in Scotland you have snow and stuff, but I'm not sure, you know, if all of it's full of snow. So there must be other activities and other things that can happen at different points of the year. I guess one question is, do they have any sort of events, or what could be the reasons that people go to these different areas? Is it just for the sun and the beach, or are there other reasons potentially? Or maybe this is what the story is about. So maybe there's problems going in there outside of the summertime for whatever reason. Meanwhile, the nearby ocean cries out for protection. Okay. It's this twin problem that a new social enterprise aims to fix: the Sea Ranger service, which launches today in the UK. Today, when is today? I'm not sure how old this is. I'm not sure if it gives us a date for this. Let me have a look. I can't see any date here, so I beg your pardon. We do. It's the 10th of January. This was from 10th of January 2024. So the date of broadcast, it's about a month and a half, give or take, or maybe actually exactly a month and a half ago. So that was the today. And again, that can be a good way if you're looking at grammar usage. If you know when something is written, then you can think of it like if you plotted along a timeline, then that can also give a better understanding of why different structures are used, if grammar is your something you want to work on. The Sea Ranger service, which launches today in the UK, trains young people from predominantly deprived coastal regions to become ocean conservationists while paying them a salary. I wonder what's involved, I guess, is the obvious question. What's the criteria for selection, and how old is a young person, I guess, is the question some people may have here. Because it could be many things. It could be young, as in, well, I guess it could be like teenager up to sort of like university age. It could be also including early 20s up to 30, and sort of depending on your mindset, maybe young is still even like early 30s and stuff, and later. So, but my guess is this would be targeted. Now, I haven't read this. My guess is this is targeted maybe for people up until, I'm gonna say 30 to give a round number, but realistically, I think probably it's going to be somewhere between 25 and 30. Because I think maybe they're thinking about people, well, actually, maybe not. Maybe it's a bit younger. Maybe they want people who didn't go to university. If they're talking about people who are unemployed and that sort of thing, maybe it's a case of people who aren't going to university. But anyway, you could say that it's kind of a blue collar job for ocean restoration. West Werf. So excuse my pronunciation. It's I'm guessing here what the pronunciation is. The enterprise's co-founder tells positive news. It breaks the rules a bit because so far it's mostly activists and scientists who have been involved in this kind of space. Okay. So the Sea Ranger service was founded in the Netherlands in 2016 and is also operational in France. In both countries, it receives money to service government contracts for ocean conservation. The enterprise has so far trained more than 120 young people to carry out biodiversity restoration, climate research, and monitoring. The rest is to train 20,000 people for maritime careers by 2040. That's a lot of people. And the UK was a logical location to help it scale up, explains Van der Werf, is my guess again. It seems very like a good idea, doesn't it? I suppose. Well, I suppose it seems like, well, it says mainly government contracts, so I guess that's the way they're getting their income and stuff. So it's, I guess, like in many places they have some places they have like a work for the dole sort of thing. So if you get unemployment benefits, you have to do some sort of activity or work for that. And I guess if you're doing that to get some sort of accreditation, formal training, with that by the end of it is a good thing as well. I wonder how much they're paying them, if it's sort of like equivalent to unemployment benefits, or if it's a greater amount than that, or if it's just a minimum wage. Or because I think in the UK they also have what's it called, a living wage. So I wonder if it's one of those two, or something else entirely. But good. The UK. Oh, okay. And actually, that's another thing to think about. If you're, again, when you're using this sort of stuff, like an article or many things, for English practice, one other thing you can do is think of using the text or the information for questions. Two sets of questions I always suggest. So questions where the answer is directly in the article or the source, whatever it is, and other questions where it's outside. So maybe people have to think about experience, or put two and two together, or sort of maybe make some assumptions or present some ideas, brainstorm, whatever it might be, that sort of thing. But two sets of questions is, again, a good way to practice. That's also a good thing to practice when you're actually having a conversation. You're actively listening to another person, to be able to then not just sort of go, okay, or just move on. You can actually, ask them questions, and you're showing engagement when you're actively listening, I guess is what they call it. The UK is one of the front runners in terms of creating maritime protected areas, really. And it's one of the countries that I think has taken a lot of really positive steps, he says. Yet at the same time, like many countries, it is not a core task of government to have specialist ships go out there to protect those areas. It's not a core task. I guess that's interesting, well, sort of concept to think about. So if it's not a core task, is that not a core task why they don't want to do it, or they don't want to try and find a solution or identify a problem with that? But anyway, however, tackling poverty is, or should be, a core task of government. Okay, so I guess when we're looking at the priority list, perhaps there's different things. So handling or tackling, solving, helping people who are in poverty is higher on the scale than the natural area and spaces sometimes. And I guess that's historically been the case for, well, actually I don't know if that's actually right. I just said that, but maybe that's not actually historically correct. Maybe it depends on the people that they're helping and the location. The idea of addressing that while meeting biodiversity targets appeals to policymakers, reckons Van der Werf. It's interesting here how they've got the different verbs. And again, this could be another thing that you can pick up. So here we've got, for example, says. And then here we've got reckons, so like a more casual way of saying thinks. Then we've got explains. Is it the only one? Is there anything else? Okay, then he told someone or something, in this case, the news publication. So some good ways of varying the verbs that are actually being used when you're presenting information. It's a good example. That young people will be trained by ex-Royal Navy veterans adds clout. Nice word, he says. Again, when you're looking at a word, now I just say nice word because for me it's like, wow, what a word. You don't see that perhaps too often. Although I remember there used to be wasn't there an app called Clout back maybe like, I'm not, maybe it's still around, I don't know, but like 10, 15 years ago, something about where you, oh, actually, I don't know what, it was something to do with, there was an app where you like leave reviews and stuff, and you check into places. And I think they were operating that you can get like discounts and stuff like that. But then they separated it into two separate things. And one of them was Clout, but I don't actually remember what the original one was. But anyway, but I think that was with a K anyway, that Clout. Nevertheless, so if there's like a word that you see again, like, and you go, oh, Clout, okay, what is Clout? And you want to go and search Clout and do all that sort of stuff. So that's great, and let's have a do that. Let's have a do that. No, let's do that. So if we search, so if we come over, you're going to use the Longman dictionary today. It tends to be pretty good. It's a nice dictionary for a few reasons, but let's have a look at Clout. We'll search that. And we can see here actually the reasons why I like it. It's got the different pronunciations, the different meanings, and then it has some really nice, generally speaking, it depends on the word, of course, but it has some good examples, real world examples. And then sometimes as well, it has the collocations. In this case as well, it's also using the business context of the definition. But it's good in a way that you can use, you can listen to the sentences or parts of sentences. People with financial clout, I guess it's a portion of a sentence. So you can listen to them, because it's generally not good. Well, it's okay just to listen to the word, but normally we say things in sentences or a few words together normally. And so the way that the word sounds or is pronounced is or can be different depending on what words you're combining it with. And then it's also good to look at the collocations or combinations of words that go together with that. And of course, the other one that I often talk about is Youglish. So if you use Youglish and that does a search on YouTube, you can hear in a very quick amount of time it's an unusual combination. There's a quick amount of time, but anyway, if you use Youglish, you'll get the idea of what I mean by that. But very quickly, you can listen to many people, depending on what the word is, but many people saying a word or a phrase, and so on. So that could be very useful. Okay, but at the end of the day, so you can look at the definition. So here the definition is power or authority to influence other people's decision. And so that's when they talk about maybe politicians, influencers, maybe. You know, if you have some influencers, if you're on social media, they have some clout, or some influencers that have a large following have more clout than other influencers, and so on, etc. So you may look at that definition and then go, okay, it's an interesting word, and they've used it here. Then you can think, okay, how many times do I see this word? How common is this word? And it may not be that common. And I guess one thing we can do, I forgot about this, but let's have a quick look. Let me see if I can get this up. So let's have a look at. So here we are. Okay, so here we've got the word clout. So if we go to Ngram, I'm not sure if it's just because I've searched in books, but anyway, if I look in Ngram, so let's change the years here. Let's change this to show what the last year, 2019 is the word. So if we go, let's say to 1920, let's say. So if we look at the history, we can see, in a sense, how common or how much usage the word clout has had in a general sense. And then we can compare it to, let's say, for example, influence. And if we compare these two, okay, it's been rather similar. Maybe I need to do a space there. Let's see if that makes a difference. Okay, it's the same, but it's actually quite interesting. So clout you can see clout compared to influence. That's why it looks so strange, because if you look at clout is right down the bottom there. And basically, it's the it's the axis. It's the line down the bottom. So clout isn't as common, let's say, as the word influence. But influence has seemed to. I'm not sure if that's right, because influence is good, but maybe that's just the way that it's the data that it's using and where it's getting it from. But I wonder if this is okay. Let me change this, see if that makes okay. But same sort of deal. The main point here is that you can see, for example, the word influence is way more common. So it's not, obviously they're not a bad thing to have the word cloud. In fact, it can be quite useful in some circumstances. It can make you sound more authoritative or more professional or more advanced perhaps, or more confident. But I guess the other thing is that when you're using a word like that, if the people that you're communicating with, speaking to, or writing, if they don't know what that word is, that may then be something you have to explain. And it depends on, I guess, what your purpose is. That may take away time from the actual message getting across, rather than showing off to say, hey, I know these words, look how good I am, sort of thing. So I would say be appropriate for the audience, but it can be useful in certain times. But as you can see, it's not necessarily as common to use. What else was I going to say? Now, clout. Okay, they don't show there. But let's say if we use another word, let's say, for example, power. Problem with power, I guess it has more meanings and stuff and more usage. Yeah, so it's, if you compare power, because power, you could also be talking about things like electricity. So that's maybe not a fair comparison to compare power. But again, you can see that if you compare influence and power, power is a very common word to use. And then, so I guess the main point here is, if you're thinking about in terms of the priority for you to try and learn this sort of a word, something like this can sort of help influence, there you go, your decision making in terms of, do you dedicate time to learning this? Is there a real benefit compared to other words which may be more understandable for the majority of your audience to understand? Okay, so that's the main thing, I guess, when we're looking at vocabulary. Turning to the article, we test people's strength of character and how they act when they're under pressure. Good. If we're talking about tackling youth unemployment in coastal areas while bringing veterans and young people together in something that protects the environment, then I think that resonates with people, says. Okay, so we go back to says, because I guess there's not too many more verbs that we could use. And again, says is probably the most common thing that you'll say. So in terms of the one that gets repeated the most, says is more than likely going to be the one you hear the most and read the most. Says Van der Werf, who previously worked as an engineer on ships in Antarctica. I guess if you're looking at this, you're looking and saying, okay, so if I'm doing an exam or something, if I want to add some type of complexity to my sentences, this is the sort of thing that I could use. So I'm describing, I'm giving more information about the person. Obviously, it could be like a place or a thing or an action or many different things, but you describe or you give more detail about that using the relative pronoun. In this case, we're using who for another person. We're not campaigning. We're not activists. We're not trying to change policies. We just want to make sure that young people can get the skills to improve the management of oceans. The Sea Ranger service is in talks with government departments about servicing conservation contracts in the UK. It is also partnering with organizations such as Project Seagrass, which is restoring the nation's lost seagrass meadows. Okay, again, so you see the same sort of thing here. So this witch is introducing the description of Project Seagrass. Again, it's a good way if you want to practice getting more complex in what you're describing and talking about. Then we've got more people. Looks like these perhaps the same group of people, but unfortunately the canoe sank. Okay, maybe that was maybe that's the actual situation. So what do you do like if you're in the middle of the lake and there's a hole in the canoe? How do you get out? Maybe it's a team building thing. Maybe it's a real life emergency. What do you call it? Like a rehearsal or drill or practice situation and that sort of thing. But good. Have you ever been like in a boat or some type of vessel that's so hopefully not like a big vessel that would be very traumatic and dramatic, but something like a canoe or a raft or something. It's a interesting situation. I guess it also depends where you are and what's around. If you've got like lots of fish or creatures or animals in the water that you might be worried about, it's a different thing compared to maybe something like a lake where there's not many things or things that you might be worried about. Nevertheless, so the Sea Ranger Service aims to train 20,000 people for maritime careers by 2040 is the caption. Uniquely, Sea Ranger boats are sail-powered, meaning they tread lightly on the ecosystems they are deployed to protect. Young people on the program are trained to sail them, a skill that could lead to other career opportunities. I'm still interested to see what the pay would be, although maybe they might not detail that. Okay, but this answers the other question. So young Britons aged 18 to 29. So I reckon I'll get that one. Okay, so it's like up to 30. So yeah, so university age up to about 30. So 18 to 29 are being invited to apply to take part in, good combination, to take part in the UK program. But be warned, it's no picnic. There's a nice expression. No picnic. It's not easy. Applicants must go through a rigorous boot camp to prove they've got what it takes to work in challenging circumstances. So maybe the stuff with the canoe is part of that. We do push people's boundaries, says Van der Werf. We test people's strength and their strength of character and how they act in a group when they're under pressure. Ultimately, when you're going to work in the Celtic or Celtic? Either way, Sea for weeks on end, it can be quite rough. So I wonder, now if they're testing people's strength and their strength of character, are they going to be selecting the ones who have a high level of strength and a high level of strength of character, however we're judging high? Or are we getting the ones that are lower? So the ones that are high are capable, or the ones that are lower, you could potentially see more improvement. So which ones would they target? Could be a question, because there could be some advantage, in increasing the confidence of those people whose maybe strength of character is not as great. And then I guess the other thing is like, if those people, maybe they lack confidence for whatever reason, or they're not able to be physically stronger than other people. Again, there could be many reasons for that. If they go to this and they apply and they're rejected because of that lack of physical strength or character strength, and they're rejected, I guess what's the what's the consequence of that? I don't know, something to think about. So which ones would they prioritize? I guess you could argue if you already have a high strength of character, if we say it that way, if they have that resilience already, the actual benefit that they get from the program may not be as much as the other people, although the actual achieving the targets of the program, if it is in terms of just looking at, or mainly looking at conversation, getting projects done, completing those government contracts or whatever, they're obviously going to be better for that. So I guess that's an interesting question of which one is the way to go. Let me know your ideas. What do you think about that? Or maybe you think there should be a mix. I don't know, but let me know in the comments what you think there. Successful applicants will take to the water on sailing expeditions. Oh, actually, literally taking to the water. Okay, on sailing expeditions from Port Talbot in Wales, where the ship is based, and will be employed as full-time sea rangers. Again, we don't know. I assume the pay is going to be okay. It doesn't really say, but I guess so. For people who haven't gone to university or don't have the right qualifications to typically go into conservation careers, it's a real opportunity. Absolutely, that's a very interesting story. I think I like this website, Positive News. So I've only looked at a couple of stories from here so far, but certainly it's a nice change from just seeing stories that are, even though it's real world, but just about sort of like war or death or killing or explosions or gun crime or other crime and all that sort of stuff. So it's sometimes nice to I guess to see the positivity, I guess is the way to do it. Okay, so I think I'm going to leave it there. I hope you've enjoyed, I guess, my review of or going through of this story. I'd like to hear your comments and your thoughts. Remember, we are here for English language practice, so just listening and watching this isn't necessarily going to do too much, I dare say, for your English ability. But if you speak about this or if you write about this, some sort of production, it's certainly going to be much, much more beneficial. So thinking about giving your opinion, giving a summary, asking questions, preparing questions, etc. about, in this case, this topic, leaving your comments in the comments. You've got the email address that you can see down the bottom, ticking across the bottom, speakenglish@lessonjigsaw.com. You can always shoot us an email and see if you're available to come onto a live stream one day to practice speaking English about different topics and that sort of stuff. But anyway, if you're not subscribed, please, you're welcome to do that. And I hope you have a great day practicing English in some way. That's it for me for the moment. Have a good one. Take care.